Hello, America. There is a shock and awe regarding how free speech has been denied and regarding readings of statutes that are criminally foreign influence and roles with both sides with that and defenses of themselves as individuals. They can't defend themselves and afford properly use the short words of others. So then they stack more and more things fake. So when they use readings of statutes that give themselves the right to lie, they increasingly self-value and are used remotely, measured and maintain self-valuing readings of statutes that leave out exceptions and exception nature. So Hartford Hospital has doctors recorded, confessed, demonstrated, recorded, involved with this. And with writings of statutes with names involved, former director of the FBI, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence Corrupt Organization Act, the sense and sensibilities of the television judges and of prosecutors, retired and standing as the sources of MSNBC, Fox News, and CNN. They are recorded involved with intra and inter, the location, their locations and the locations next to them. The intelligence community uses self-valued rules with usage by the breaching method, also singularly used as singular breaching method, all locations /S since founding. Many ways this is not debatable. Not only is it not debatable, for example, how the suburbs were designed before our founders were born. It is being debated and gotten away with because of collusions with illusions and tactical delusions in the narratives of the experts of every science, including American history, for example, communicating other for our founders than they communicate for themselves. So they're using knowledge, the most knowledge of subjects to measure and maintain, as they are being shown to by what it uses that remotely, pretending it's experience or credibility anyway. Used remotely. You're not supposed to leave out readings of the statutes, leaving out how and why our founders had to counter extort the others for just a short amount of time. And then the laws were already so crazy, extortion, torture, and fact-human nature, slavery of everyone, including our founders, which are still having other communicated for themselves than they asked communicated for themselves. Narratives regarding our founders' roles with slavery left out how our founders had to counter extort the other founders while simultaneously lying about their actual motivations and hiding that fact, or they would have been sensed and discerned through our own and or through the ones that they counter extorted. But once they did that, the laws were so crazy, individually grouped and together self-valued, and that used remotely, even countries grouped. This is how so sick and stupid it is. Black pupils, whites of eyes left out with where and how that is a subject of those laws. And nature is communicating other. And other is being blamed exactly the way the breaching method set it up. Forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded to. You guys don't appreciate, there is even recorded evidence of slavery physically of Irish people, which is one of the more white versions of white, which is still uninformed. What is you? Are you white, Caucasian, African American? Oh, because it came from Africa. It came from Africa. You know, you were there. All the databases were criminally foreign influence. They were involved with a torture method, an extortion method, slavery method. See, in other words, but that's supposed to be used simultaneously with the list of things that correlation nature uses, reason uses. So we have criminally foreign influence readings of statutes tied to where and how we have identities of mental health being and having been associated with actual health locations, being involved with actual research locations, keeping those locations used and having been used criminally foreign influence to effectively maintain criminal insidiousness natures of positive and negative treatments, identity name treatments, and then further as ground locations treatment, timing of it, because also sequence shifts, illusions, and cover-ups from that past, and increasingly are connected, increasingly grouped together. See how they have a fake need to be in, whether or not integrity countries A through Z, they're and told to pretend that other. That's because the same breaching method already came from some ancient times, since before modern religions messengers. No one ever heard the connection, which is also the most logical, which is, in other words, one of the things religions are about how there was already, they changed the human fact nature by taking the identities of the sciences and criminally re-engineering what they were and are about, which is about how to cause positive value nature progressions, acts of natures, and the way that reveals evolution's fruits and gifts and means out of nowhere, including how we are fact shaping nature. But that requires the discernment and checking, trying as hard as we can to check what is criminally foreign influence. In other words, or if there are delusions raw with any finite detail, group details, group relativity is one of the things that nature is increasingly demonstrating, where it is increasing identity of value as an increasingly distinct from ourselves, identity of volume that is also non-distinct from ourselves. And with the mixture of that, with where and how it's making more of itself. This is demonstrably what English was revealed to teach. The educators are a certain type of victim who will deny it, and that's where they are victim predators. And so and that is shown to them too. So they hide in the background and pretend to have integrity, pretend to have faith in identities of law, identities of things typed in databases, identities of things said to them. These are methods that take the identity of the identities of the leaders of schools and the difference of that janitor, the differences between that and the kids, and they mix roles where they have timed collusion with the insidiousness of the interbranch and intelligence, which is also all the exceptions tied to that, like the state office, the state of Connecticut judicial branch office, state of Connecticut corrections offices, involved with more and more names, involved with predicate acts, with real quick illusions planting, where timed uses of it enrolls with the names of the World Trade Center attack, fake motivations trend, and with the Saudis, they forced the self-value roles. And with where the opposite is true, the difference between that too is also recorded being and having been used criminally foreign influence. Also descriptions of what I'm saying here. People are being dishonest about their own motivations for it and about what they think about others on a mass scale. If you look at what they're defending for being censored, they're leaving out the actual things. In other words, of course, they're leaving out the people who are being censored from noting interbranch has been forging and switching names. There have been roles with criminally foreign influence readings of statutes and how that got to be. They can't defend that in the same time. Real fast like that, we got real health care. They have police forms that have been involved with all names on all sides of criminal and of civil cases, and the victims and the courts appointed victims advocates, and the names of the courts, forging and switching names, putting detailed fake things in databases as collusions with crime scenes and as collusions with remote uses of that. Increasingly, because then it shows them needs to hide that, shows them needs to pretend they can speak for integrity after the short words. They have collusions with predicate acts, can't afford the short words proper. They can't afford proper discernment by how reason uses invisible but still discernible conjunctions to what is positive. Distinctly as positive that is not criminal, insidious in nature is a positive treatment. See, there is sickness with the logic of kids that they're forcing to ignore what they are actually capable of correlating and did. They're lying about that too. They gave them other means, and it knew that leaders would have to do that. It knew that the difference between overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and interbranch, they're kept, and insidiousness of people A through Z, and the how people know each other or not. They had to lie about that in the past, increasingly have to lie connected to that. This is tied to how they get so stupid with culture. When if one person was honest, it would reveal the hyperculture. It's the identity that revealed why we have two eyes. The other species have it. So we could see that. There's a third, there's an additional identity of simultaneous nature, which being an individual is. But it's also a sequence nature simultaneously to relative to the human body, relative to the value of itself, invisible but still discernible, as increasing volume where we have to use or ignore use of the word slash value humanity, even if where it's not used. All the words, all the sciences share an identity where they appear not to. That's nature showing how it uses exceptions and exception nature all the ways we could. Even if we make something up, it's going to have the same volume slash s science attached even to every detail of what we make up, and then grouped overall for the reason why really there are individual group differences, different slash there's group different slash s, and there's the simultaneous volume science. And we have those differences also explained per how it is distinctly from the other species bodies, which also have male, female. Some have eggs. Nature shows us how to describe this. And when we're honest, we come to how it's showing us it's distinct, it's non-distinct, and it's simultaneous identity of relationship. It's simultaneous identity of volume as the hyper invisible but still discernible as a hyper simultaneous nature, for example, to begin with. And then its identity of relationship to itself and only increasing value of that. Value as volume. There are proofs that the ancients used the word volume, relative, and identity in names. Therefore, relative to all location slash s. Relative to how computers are taught, where and how microchips, CPUs, they're working together with the same location slash s method, and where sequence is being valued as means to discern. It's a distinct identity of order. What is simultaneously recorded and changes to that and the sequence of that, individually grouped and together. This is inside inside a system that is also hyperdimensionally itself, the way no other thing can be. So it's one of the ways it is functional, being hyper invisible but still discernible. Reason is functional because there is a hyper identity. There's an identity of hyper simultaneous that is distinct. It is non-distinct. It is simultaneous, and it is further hyper simultaneous. In appreciation of that, also honest reveals there's also the value of a slash and or the solidus between that as 3 volumes with one identity of relationship to itself and the only increasing value of that simultaneously as means to discern, simultaneously slash hyper simultaneously, where and how each complete identity connects with another connects with that complete identity that as itself is true always, not denying the slightest sequence, and as what explains itself and is using and has used difference. There are a whole bunch of people directly and indirectly involved with planting evidences with foreign and domestic nations. They use the method of you pretending people made conspiracy theories for how they use location slash S together as a fake identity of integrity at countries A through Z, but pretending other, as this breaching method knew they would be doing, as criminal insidiousness natures, as ages of correlation nature with their family members, relative to the sense and sensibilities of people, to use Jane Austen's phrase, and to use as value how the Romantic age with England is, and which is the age of revolution, which is the age of, the end of the already completed perfectly. Countries A through Z as the semi-ancient forms, already forced, hurt, tricked, persuaded to defend themselves, valuing uses of their names, valuing uses of the names of others, all grouped differences of by humanity, use tactical ulterior from why and how. Nature uses such. Nature uses such for reasons. Nature uses why and how. Math has to use grouping symbols and to value that increasingly for the same reason. But then this has reasons more why grouping is important, what English is about. The identity of English, let alone an identity that is greater than and more finite than it, as that part of its identity, which is also juxtaposed with the complete identity that is hyper simultaneous. It is the body of what actually unfolded, and regardless of what motivations what unfolded in the past, regardless if everyone agrees to lie about that. In other words, nature will continue to demonstrate with negative value nature progressions, acts of nature. To be able to lie or a truth, and the relativity of it cannot be appreciated properly until we have criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments treated properly. So, example, it is a truth that there are readings of statutes that have been keeping doctors and police forms immune from prosecution, judges and prosecutors immune from prosecution, but they left out what is actually recorded. And that's not saying that in other words, they're leaving out the foreign bodies too by calling a tax on themselves. That's one of the things where manifest, a whole bunch of ways manifest. Remote uses of all formal identities the law never sees. It was unceasingly better than perfect. So the World Trade Center of context, we have people that went for torture for an array of reasons, and the difference of that was also consciously used to cover up uses of themselves. Self-value collusions with predicate acts methods that we have the route, we have the consciousness and understanding at before we are in third grade to explain ourselves, to figure out using the overt, before we are in third grade, people from men and women from off campuses, they can record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. They affect confessions, for example. This breaching method uses confessions distinctly from the church and distinctly from how nature uses confessions and or the will for them and why the will for them. See, this breaching method uses how everybody is hyper native, but how the Native Americans were given a hyper additional American citizenship name. It's not manifest. Physical demonstrations of it are not manifest because all ground phenomena are being and have been used to hide lack of integrity at every science. So you guys are hiding what George Washington left us to communicate with about honesty. Honestly, Hartford Hospital has a whole bunch of people involved. There's with a black doctor. They prevented me from speaking with. The only one I tried to speak with. And now there's a whole bunch of doctors with their patients and criminals. Some of them are criminals at Hartford Hospital, hospitals throughout the country. It's intercity, though. I found out it was even one of the hospitals I went on. They have the intelligence community involved with them, with mental health care, some with badges. And they've been putting fake things in those databases and hiding life progressions with judges and prosecutors, hiding methods of predicate acts with facts. Now, the forgiveness is because there are foreign bodies involved. They'll have people do the greatest evil or the most insidiousness and the insidious positives are going on at the same time, between the difference between strangers, people that don't know each other at all, and people, all other exceptions. That's also exploited, used consciously by this method that uses difference. So before the World Trade Center attack, people on and off the Central Connecticut State University in their cafeteria, they have roles with the intelligence community through time, intercities. Central Connecticut State University has roles with a Mr. Abruzzi and with foreign and domestic military. Further, with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and judges who have roles with prosecutors and names with the courts, with all sides in criminal and in civil cases, and victims advocates, timed collusions with predicate acts and with predicate act methods, and fake motivations planting with foreign bodies relative to how have been used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought since they were kids, and or that body was sensed, and or that nature was sensed with true treatments, with correlation nature's means. It's very easy to discern this, because if someone honest is going to come about, kids are going to say, okay, the Native Americans, we want the Native, we appreciate the Native Americans. We didn't want that crazy method on them. Distinctly, and was sickly distinctly. In other words, we're aware there was a sickly distinctly method against the Native Americans and against the colonists, which is the same exact one, and it's hiding behind that. We have means to discern this when we are little kids. But this is also where that breaching method employed the difference between the identities of the law, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and the insidiousness of people A through Z, and then further as employments, tactically ulterior from how employed by nature, and then further per how and why, which is both the breaching method as a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise, as a subject, and its method as a hyper-predicate acts delivery system method, which is also through ourselves, everywhere the human species volume is, manifest as a predicate acts with facts delivery system method, and or criminal insidious nature delivery system method, and or the difference of that roles, method, use, roles, use singular by it. This is a method of keeping foreign bodies involved with also the other names. When kids distinctly in the past played games with phones, also made up. This is also made up because this breaching method uses measured and maintained. People don't realize, even though it's what's actually recorded, is where and how overt criminal enterprises, private ones, insidiousness of people A through Z, and overt criminal enterprise, private ones, in other words, sick family members, people that will do evil things at the same time with the interbranch kids and adults, needing to hide the same finite, active, progressive lies, uses of collusions with uses of truth for lies, like in other words, pretending they're just legitimate roles, pretending to defend unmarked police forms, and or why they would need to have people appearing to be, at all natures of locations, but appearing to be not officially there. This designed the suburbs before our founders were born for the torture of and for the extortion of George Washington. The only reason this has been left out with American history, because if someone says this, people sense that, because the relativity of it is to all kinds of things. And people already had valued the sciences taught abridged. And being and having been, while you're doing that, you're valuing that having been. And so we have a nature of psychopath that with calmness at school boards, at town offices meetings, at town locations. Psychopath calmness that is rolls with a collusion preventing people short words. And then they're going to change what we say, make a description, ask questions just to give up, it, I didn't understand. Leave out the first thing. I want a response for the principal child abuser's confessions with Weathersfield campuses and with the town meetings. I want a response for the names of the cops be switching names, forging names, and the names with federal agencies and former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his defendant capacities as one of the ones, and his lawyer, Robert Chevrolet, and various natures of organized crime bodies, including ones associated as his co-defendants, Thaddeus Grabowski, for example, on Fox Connecticut News, involved with men and women with the intelligence community, with the names Domain and Mendez, recorded involved also with people with the name Dylan, with wire crime acts and methods, and a police chief Centron, one named Knapp, and some other ones years ago, involved with wire crime acts and methods, forging and switching names, police forms. A guy who said he was a partner of a Detective Dylan years ago. He's one of the ones involved with teachers from Weathersfield, Connecticut, who are also psychiatrists and psychologists, attaching kids to fake conversations with themselves, and changed and furthering fake things with, in other words, in the difference of that, where and how they're assigning kids to pretend passions and emotions for adults. And in other words, where they're keeping a quality of fact, treatment nature has criminal insidiousness nature, is also being used remotely because it is also keeping hyper-criminal insidiousness nature, roles with a human fact treatment nature breaching method that back pupils, whites of eyes, and exceptions, and awareness of the hyper-simultaneous as a scientific value with reason has means to wipe clear from here boxings. So they have readings of statutes regarding online, where they said online. And they're confessing, they're leaking things through the people who are pretending to be against leaking, because the locations, areas, and states have self-valued how they were left criminally foreign influence, legalized, but criminally legalized, and how they were left used remotely, criminal insidiousness nature of positive treatments and negative treatments and identity treatments, therefore names treatments, including additionally as ground locations. No, location /S. Everywhere the species body is, the science, it is /S. It is about the human species volume, individual, group, difference /S. And species volume, unobstructed or obstructed as us. And the difference, you have to appreciate a special difference and how we are a special difference, not as Earth, but as ourselves, and as a group. There are Earth, our conjunction is Earth, and ourselves are three volumes that are connected the same way. Cell body, cell nucleus, cell wall. Same way, the invisible but still discernible. It works where they can describe cell, atomic nucleus, proton neutron group identity of relationship to itself, and identity of electron identity of relationship to itself, and only increasing value of that, positive or negative. No, I'm not an electrician. Each of the sciences is abridged. Uses of the defenses of the locations, the way they've used it, leaving out exceptions and exception nature, are found is hyper-evidential. For example, a hyper-evidential comes with the evidential. Originally, still, they've been using the evidential to hide things and make things up into branch as collusion at crime scenes, and or with their motivations too. because this breaching method knew correctly, nature will continually to demonstrate at each modern country. A criminally foreign influence nature breaching method is present. It is an identity of relationship to all finite fact treatments, all grouped ones, and all together. Trinity College has a guy named Darth Vader, who uses the name Darth Vader as a police form, as one of the ones on off how the police are next to there, how they set it up, how it changed through time. They have police form on the campuses, and they have one right off the campuses. Same thing at Central Connecticut State University in the Britain. Central names that live next to the campuses too. At Central Connecticut State University in the Britain and Hartford, Connecticut, they recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed people involved with the intelligence community, like judges and prosecutors and their family members associated with Johnny Duke, Johnny Duke, the dinosaur of boxing. So I used to train at Bellevue Square boxing when I was learning to box. And then that Bellevue Square boxing gym closed. There were other Bellevue Square boxing gym closed in the past too. I don't know if there's one now again. I mean, when I was a little kid, I went there, but I didn't box. I just remember there was a that might have been Charter Oak. See, there was also a Charter Oak boxing who has roles with people with extended family members of judges, but they're also with other agencies, including former director of the FBI in his defendant capacities, and other judges in their extended family. Like there are ones with the name Spada and Della Fera, who are involved with some wire crimes with Wethersfield Police, also with Wethersfield Pizza, with the name Cololo and Stocco, and others I don't know the names of. They know my name. And Mark Violet repeated the name Greco, and Joshua Julian involved with it. And these are people involved with the O'Brien family and others with the intelligence community at Central Connecticut State University. Since I was a kid, they have people sticking predicate acts into databases with little tricks and fake ties and natures of ties to students and other students, and descriptions of instances used to fake motivations then and for people in the future to keep a quality of fact-keeping nature left up, because they have increasing uses of collusions consciously of the family members of overt criminal enterprises, private ones, people next to body dumping spots, the killers, the people involved with their jailing of them, their doctors, and the courts have put them away. First collusions together off the body dumping spot, but the name is next to it, because of how all investigators are being and haven't been used remotely since founding. Our founders left us to demonstrate how and why everything was forced, left collusions with that and abridged. The electrical engineering, the circuit board of America's value/value progression. We entered into it the names of countries already since semi-ancient times, criminally foreign influence. The phenomenon of Native Americans did damage control. And our founders did damage control by counter-extorting the other founders. And all together, then they all had to hide from the breaching laws. But they had to do that, and their roles with that. And pretending other, which is roles with that too, simultaneously. All we have to do, forgiveness, all the answers come out of nowhere, because then we show how everything's simultaneously. The branch of the government, overt criminal enterprises, and all sides in criminal and civil cases. The news at the same time planting predicate acts roles. Predicate acts with facts are a serious crime method. And see, this makes fake sides where they have people with predicate acts with facts and child abuses roles and elderly abuses roles and military locations, like veteran affairs, veterans buildings. Just see how they're designed like the cities. Little kids in the suburbs before they're in third grade, we could discern if you're shown, in other words, before our founders were born, they made the houses of the suburbs. And I didn't even know it at the time. We should have been told this. If they just tried to make them any other way, the laws were crazy against everyone. In fact, shouldn't be even about that. They would hurt and worse everyone around them and kill people. Because this is a method to keep the sense and sensibilities of everyone, the syntax of everyone, collusions against everyone. And that used remotely to keep used remotely from abroad, but also through those countries themselves used remotely from abroad. Needed to counter increasingly things like criminal insidiousness, like criminal foreign influences, increasingly, as the breaching method correctly knew, doing that and defending it by blaming other things, others, or selves, wrongly as collusion /S. When did the breaching method stop using the overt criminal enterprises, the private ones that it generated, forced, involved with the torture and extortion of George Washington? American history starts here. And this is where, see, when it comes to the slavery of George Washington, it comes to where and how this had already been affected, the fact-cheating nature, torture, extortion, and slavery of the Native Americans first. But but they need us to speak for the Constitution abridged. They need us to speak for cultures abridged, and or as a unity narratives that are criminal insidious natures of the word / value unity, and or independence simultaneously too, as has only been heard. Because you have entertained logic with little kids that is tactically delusions wrought and still criminally foreign influence. And there are applications by that and where and how. This breaching method effectively knew that would continually be demonstrated to people. So it fed a whole bunch of victims / hyper victims at the same time with every identity of expert. And the difference between that and overt criminal enterprises and private ones. Their uses of their difference, like the neighbors next to everyone, next to campuses, the names next to campuses, next to parks. They're used for where and how manifest our means to discern where and how investigators, and their own, and the campuses that build that and rolls into it. How they're maintained with the other sciences too. Timed collusion with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, countries A through Z, individually grouped and together. All voicings of humanity have, formally speaking for the law, have this inherent active and progressive possession and uses of it recorded, as actually recorded, and it would show. So they're making mistakes in cases on purpose as collusions with crime scenes, as predicate acts with facts, methods, roles too, manifest with that. And that's relative to how they're used remotely at other locations, where they time uses of names with conversations, relative to timed uses of events. The intelligence community is used remotely where they have parties to criminally foreign influence, make fake ties and fake natures of ties to people, to repeat things at other locations so they could have other people leave things out and make things up or hide that, others doing that. So there are remote uses of all the issues that came before the interbranch since founding. So follow mandated law for them switching and forging names with the other countries involved with the World Trade Center attack then and now. And don't use that word of conspiracy theory, and don't hide and plot. I rap a lot. Real fast, give me a response. Give me a response. Who disbelieves? Tell me that we need to act. We need the who disbelieves act. That's whether they're switching names, Connecticut interbranch switching names has rules with criminally foreign influence readings of statutes and or natures. Also, the differential uses of the difference of that, because there are foreign bodies involved, and we are not going to leave them out as they're actually recorded. And they are not legitimately with their extended family members on and off New Britain Avenues with the courts involved, planting evidences on Zion Street next to Trinity College, and on all sides, and on New Britain Avenue next to Trinity College. Through time, rolls with people all along Route 3 since they were kids, used from investigating the agencies and judges and prosecutors and their family members, as these ones also on off the state judicial branch offices, on off the state corrections offices, and names next to their locations, planting evidences at boxing gyms throughout Connecticut and interstates. These are people with Orlando, Florida, has roles, in Miami, Florida, has roles with the intelligence community on and off Central Connecticut State University, including foreign and domestic military, used timed roles with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, not legitimately with unmarked police forms. You're going to watch the delusions, too, of the ones with psychiatry and badges at the same time, and gavels associated with them, like judges and their family members, what I caught them doing. They have criminally foreign influence readings of statutes. Please make sure that I get a response. Let me just see something. I want to see if I have the link to this video. This is another one. I'm sorry, one second. 1 second. Oh, people, I want to get, I hope it's still on here. I'm looking for a video of, what's his name? It's not on here. It's not on here. It's not on here. Okay, well, this is one of the meetings. This is one of the locations with one of the Connecticut intercities locations involved further with both political parties used remotely and exceptions, and their narratives regarding how and why we bring up their names. Follow mandated law for Wethersfield and DeBranch. Make sure that they hear this, and get them to one name and sequence with the judges, intercities, the people on off the state judicial branch offices, off the corrections offices. Also, Facebook has roles with that have confirmed. They have roles with the witness protection program, all sides of criminal and civil cases. Have a whole bunch of recorded uses of corners of streets and buildings for federal evidence of crimes and crime scenes roles. Foreign and domestic military, increasingly with people with the name Oliveri and Stryker, putting fake things in databases, identity theft, frauds, and slanders with timed with other nations, with black KKK Confederate flag team too. They're not legitimate with their motivations narratives too. Their need to hide things because they were used remotely since they were kids, attaching others to fake locations, fake words, fake ties to other people. So we have fake uses of drugs and medicines and of alcohol too. Slightest excuse to make it look like they're concerned about someone drinking, they'll lie with that and about that. That's recorded too. You have sick people involved with the law and with healthcare, which has nothing to do with healthcare originally and still. And these are people involved with torture before the World Trade Center attack, and then with the criminally foreign influence drafting of the Patriot Act and uses of the media involved with this, planting roles with crime scenes and pretending other, planting fake motivations. Follow mandated law for them now. Get them on paper. Fake branches. Okay, thank you, people. What do you have to do to get heard? It has nothing to do with an algorithm. The agencies are measuring and maintaining that and how their natures are preventing mandated law. Please follow mandated law. Judge Napolitano has obligations by the law to respond for the judges forging and switching names and putting fake things in databases as collusions with recorded proven child offenders, leaders of the kids. I want the judges on names now, the women ones too. Now, I want them. You follow mandated law. You guys have had plenty of time. Make sure.